It has been absolutely galling to watch the hypocrisy directed at, and the fury, the undeserved fury directed at Israel for taking steps in its own self-defense. The so-called Freedom Flotilla, which went to break the blockade of Gaza, had to be intercepted. Israel and Egypt have been blockading Gaza. They've been blockading it not of humanitarian materials. Thousands and thousands of tons of humanitarian materials and food and supplies go through the checkpoints into Gaza every month by truck. But ships can carry anything. Israel has stopped ships on the high seas carrying rockets to Gaza. When they were challenged, and the Israeli government urged the Turks not to allow this flotilla to sail the way it was, and the Chinese, by the way, had this right. The Chinese press, a day or two before the flotilla was intercepted, printed the headline, "Turkey challenges Israel." Not Israel challenges Turkey. Turkey challenges Israel by sending these ships, knowing that the goal was to break the blockade, not to deliver humanitarian aid. When the Israelis made clear to the people on board the ships that if you land in Ashdod, we will send all the materials straight through to Gaza except for any weapons we find, Greta Berlin, the head of the organization sponsoring it, said, no, we're not interested in delivering humanitarian aid.
Can I ask the gentleman to yield for a moment? That's right here. It's not like they were being diverted somewhere far off. They were just
within
to the
Qassam
north.
rocket range.
Exactly.
It's 12 miles to be precise. Greta Berlin said, no, the aim is to break the blockade. Now, a lot of people, a lot of countries were saying, President of France, how dare they intercept ships on the high seas? This is piracy, said Prime Minister Erdogan of Turkey. Well, the law is very clear. If you are fighting someone, and Israel is fighting Hamas, Hamas controls the territory and has declared war on Israel and said that war will not stop till Israel is destroyed. Maybe a ceasefire from time to time, but this war must continue till Israel is destroyed as far as Hamas is concerned. Then you're subject to blockade. That's a tactic of war. And in a blockade, you can board the ship. You can, in fact, sink the ship if that's the only way to enforce the blockade in international waters, as long as it's clear that it's going to a blockaded area. And that's from the U.S. Naval Commander's Handbook. But why was this being done? Because we are told they have to break the blockade. Why do they have to break the blockade? Because the overall issue is that we must end the Israeli occupation. This is the real sin. This is why so many people think that Israel is wrong, because it must end the occupation. People forget how the occupation started. The occupation of Gaza and the West Bank started when Israel resisted a war of aggression aimed at its extermination in 1967. But we're ignorant of history. History started 5 years ago. Israel wants to end the occupation. Israel has offered to end the occupation, but there's a problem. Who do you give the land to? And Israel has experience here. Israel withdrew from Lebanon in 2006, and the UN said, we will send peacekeeping troops, and they will enforce Resolution 1701 to prevent the importation of rockets and arms. And what happened? There are 40,000 missiles in the possession of Hezbollah in Lebanon today because the UN peacekeepers stand aside. And Israel has learned that she cannot depend on the UN or the international community or anybody else to defend her. Gaza, Israel withdrew from in 2005 and left behind agricultural establishments and other things. What happened? Hamas took over and turned it into a rocket launching pad against Israel. Over 10,000 rockets have been launched against Israel. But
and would the gentleman yield on that point, just so everyone understands the points that Mr. Nadler is making, this piece of real estate about the size of New Jersey now has a terrorist agent here in Gaza, in the south, a terrorist agent up here in Lebanon, governed by Hezbollah, at least about 25% of its government is, and Nasrallah and Hezbollah controls this area here, and a terrorist agent of Iran right here in Syria, which once upon a time controlled literally the mountaintop overlooking this country. So what the gentleman is describing is a terrorist functions all in support of the same enemies of the United States, and that's Iran. And I thank the gentleman for yielding.
I thank the gentleman for yielding in the first place. But Israel still wants to end the occupation. Israel wants to be left in peace. Israel offered in 2000 at Camp David and in 2001 at Taba. And what was her offer? Israel said, we will withdraw from the entire Gaza Strip. We will withdraw from 97% of the West Bank. We will give land swaps to the Palestinians to make it equivalent to 100% of the acreage. But in return, they've got to agree, and we will share Jerusalem. But in return, they've got to agree that the war is over. They wouldn't agree, and they started the first intifada. Prime Minister Olmert renewed the offer in 2008. But they will not agree to end of claims or to demilitarization. That's the real issue. If they would agree to that, if the Palestinians would agree that the West Bank cannot be used, if they gave it back, that the West Bank would not be used as a rocket launching pad, that Gaza would not be used as a rocket launching pad, that Israel could live in peace if she withdrew, that deal could be made. And it could be made, it's been offered, and until the Palestinians are willing to live in peace and are willing to talk about it, the Palestinians, even Abbas, won't even talk to the Israelis now, only to the Americans. Until they're willing to talk and make that agreement, the occupation will continue, and it will be the fault of the Palestinians, not the Israelis.